Education is any act or experience that has a formative effect on the mind, character, or physical ability of an individual. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi students, how are you today? Hope you all are in good and healthy conditions. It is nice to see you in this channel to learn about educational philosophy with me, Miss Dia. Today, we are going to learn about one topic in educational philosophy, it is a very basic topic, and this is about the meaning, scope, and the functions of educational philosophy. But before that, let me show you first the description of this course and the objectives of this study. Well, as teacher candidates, you all need to know and to learn about educational philosophy because of your job in the future will absolutely deal with education. Therefore, by learning educational philosophy, you will be able to implement high-quality educations by considering many aspects in education itself. This subject is a practical approach to philosophy and educations by drawing on philosophical methods of inquiry to address questions regarding education as both formal education provisions and teaching practices, and as learning which comes from social experiences. It explores historical and contemporary approaches to education, the relations among philosophy, teaching and learning, and social and political issues. As I've told you in the beginning, today we are going to learn one basic topic in educational philosophy, and that is about the meaning, scope, and function of educational philosophy. Therefore, there will be some points that will become our focus in today's meeting. The first is the introductions, and then the second is the meaning of educational philosophy. The third is the scope of educational philosophy, and the last is the functions of educational philosophy. What about the objectives of this study? Well, in the end of these sessions, the students are expected to be able to discuss the meaning and concept of philosophy of education. The second, the students need to be able to explain the unlimited scope of philosophy of education, and then the last enumerated the various functions of philosophy of education. Now, to begin our discussions today, let's start first with the introductions. Philosophy is a search for a general understanding of values and realities by chiefly speculative rather than observational means. It signifies a natural and necessary urge in human beings to know themselves and the world in which they live and move and have their being. Philosophy is a comprehensive system of ideas about human nature and the nature of the reality we live in. It is a guide for living because the issues it addresses are basic and pervasive, determining the course we take in life and how we treat other people. Hence, we can say that all the aspects of human life are influenced and governed by the philosophical educations. As a field of study, philosophy is one of the oldest disciplines. It is considered as the mother of all the sciences. Education, like philosophy, is also closely related to human life. Therefore, being an important life activity, education is also greatly influenced by philosophy. In order to understand the concept of educational philosophy, it is necessary to first understand the meaning of the two terms, the philosophy and then the educations. Now, let's discuss about their meaning. The meaning and concept of educational philosophy. The first is the word philosophy. The word philosophy is derived from Greek words. The first word is philo, which means love, and then the second word is sophia, means wisdom. So philosophy means love of wisdom. Philosophy is a search for a comprehensive view of nature and an attempt at universal explanations of the nature of things. There are three branches of philosophy. Those are metaphysics, and then axiology, and then the last is epistemology. The first branch is called metaphysics. Metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that investigates principles of reality transcending those of any particular science. It is concerned with explaining the fundamental nature of being and the world. Metaphysics is the study of the nature of things. The second branch is called axiology. Axiology is the branch of philosophical inquiry that explores aesthetic and ethics. The first is aesthetic. Aesthetic is the study of basic philosophical questions about art and beauty. While the second is ethics, it is the study of what makes action right or wrong, and of how theories of right actions can be applied to special moral problems. And the third branch of philosophy is called epistemology. It is the branch of philosophy that studies knowledge. It attempts to answer the basic questions: what distinguishes true knowledge from false knowledge? However, one view on education believes or subscribes to the view that philosophical of education comes under the umbrella of axiology. As a branch of philosophy, it utilizes philosophical methods for the solutions of philosophical problems with philosophical attitudes to arrive at philosophical conclusions. As individuals involved in the process of education, right from the aims, purpose, functions, and building theory, we need to look at any body of knowledge or generate new knowledge based on those three branches of philosophical inquiry. So that's the meaning of philosophy. The next is the meaning of education. Okay, after knowing the meaning of philosophy, now let's talk about the meaning of education. So the word education is derived from Latin words educare or educatum, which means to bring out, to train, to lead out, and to develop. Education is any act or experience that has a formative effect on the mind, character, or physical ability of an individual. Education is the dynamic side of philosophy. Philosophy takes into its orbit all the dimensions of human life, and similarly, education also reflects the multifaceted nature of human life. Therefore, education is closely related to various aspects of human life, and environment. Hence, the term education has wide connotations. It is difficult to define education by single definitions. However, there are some experts who mention the definitions of education in narrower and also wider meaning. For example, Professor Driffer stated that education is a process in which and by which knowledge, character, and behavior of the young are shaped and molded. In a broader or wider meaning, Mackenzie stated that education is a process that goes on throughout life and is promoted by almost every experience in life. From the meaning of philosophy and education that has been explained before, it can be formed the concept of educational philosophy itself. So there are some points that can be drawn here. The first, educational philosophy is the criticism of general theory of education, and then the second, it consists of critical evaluation and systematic reflection upon general theories. And then the last, it is a synthesis of educational facts with educational value. In brief, educational philosophy is a philosophical process of solving educational problems through philosophical method, from a philosophical attitude to arrive at philosophical conclusions and results. Thus, it aims at achieving general as well as comprehensive results. That's all the meaning and the concept of educational philosophy. Now let's move on to the next part. It is about the scope of educational philosophy. The scope of educational philosophy is confined to the field of education. Thus, it is philosophy in the field of education. The scope of educational philosophy is concerned with the problems of education. And those problems mainly include the first, the interpretations of human nature, the world and the universe and their relations with man. And then the second, interpretations of aims and ideals of education. The third, the relationships of various components of the education system. The next is relationships of education and various areas of national life. The next is about educational values. And the last is about theory of knowledge and its relationship to education. All those problems constitute the scope of educational philosophy and explain its nature. Therefore, the scope of educational philosophy may include several aspects. What are they? Let's check them out. The first is the aims and ideals of educational philosophy. These aims and ideals have been propagated by various philosophers in different times. They are character building, man-making, harmonious human development, preparation for adult life, development of citizenships, education for all, and so on. These and other aims of education presented by educational thinkers in different times and claims are scrutinized and evaluated. Thus, philosophy of education crucially evaluates different aims and ideals of educational to arrive at. The second scope is about the interpretations of human nature. A philosophical picture of human nature is the result of the synthesis of the facts borrowed from all human science with the values discussed in different normative sciences. The philosophical picture, therefore, is more broad as compared to the picture of man drawn by biology, sociology, psychology, economics, and anthropology, and other human science. The third, the scope of educational philosophy is about educational values. Value is typically a philosophical subject since it is more abstract, integral, and universal. Educational philosophy not only critically evaluates the value, but also systemizes them in a hierarchy. Educational values are determined by philosophical values. Educational values are derived from individual on-world view and their outlook on the purpose of human life. And then the next scope is about theory of knowledge. Education is related to knowledge. It is determined by the source, limits, criteria, and means of knowledge. The discussions in one of the branches of philosophy, it is called epistemology, therefore, an important area of the functions of philosophy of education is related to the theory of knowledge. The next is about the relationships of education and various areas of national life and various components of the system of education. So one of the most important contributions of educational philosophy to the cause of education is the provisions to criteria for deciding the relationship of state and education, economic system and evaluations, curriculum, school organizations and management, discipline, and so on. These problems have led to the evaluations to different philosophies of education. The criteria of judgment are determined by philosophy, therefore, philosophy of education provides the criteria for critical evaluations and judgment in this field. Well, so those are some problems of education that become the concerns and discussions in the scope of educational philosophy. Now, for the last part, let's discuss about the functions of educational philosophy. Educational philosophy performs various functions. The first is determining the aims of education. Philosophy of education provides original ideas regarding all aspects of education, particularly educational aims. Educational philosophy gives different views, but this situation is not harmful. Rather, it helps in providing education according to the needs of society. The second function is harmonizing old and new traditions in the field of education. In the process of social development, the old traditions become outdated for the people. They are replaced by the new traditions. But this process of replacement is not always smooth. It is faced with lots of oppositions from certain orthodox sections of the society. At the same time, it must be kept in mind that every old is not outdated and every new is not perfect. Therefore, there is a need of co-coordinating of the two sides in order to maintain the harmony between both old and also new. And this function can be performed by philosophy of education. The third function is providing the educational planners, administrators, and educators with the progressive visions to achieve educational development. Only a true philosopher can give a practical shape to education. Philosophy of education provides the educational planners, administrators, and educators with the right vision which guides them to attain the educational goals effectively. The next function is preparing the young generations to face the challenges of the modern time. Philosophy of education is a guiding, steering, and liberating force that helps young people and society at large to face the challenges of the modern time. Okay, so those are the functions of educational philosophy that hopefully can be achieved in our daily life, especially in the educational field. After all those explanations, now we know why we need to study about educational philosophy, especially for you all as teacher candidates. The first, as basic knowledge to critically face and solve educational problem. And then the second, to build a good character of good educators. And then the last, talking about three branches of philosophy. From metaphysics, you need to know how to treat students and know the objectives of education. And then from the view of epistemology, you need to know what should be given to your students. And then from the view of axiology, you need to know the quantity and also the quality of education that must be given and achieved by our students. Now we've come to the end of our sessions. So today we have learned about the meaning, the concepts, the nature, scope, and also functions of educational philosophy. Learning educational philosophy for an educator is important in order to develop the education itself. Educational philosophy teaches the educators to think critically and systematically in applying a method of teaching and or in taking a decision in education itself. So that's all for today's meeting. Thank you so much for joining this class. I hope you all get new insights from watching and learning through this video. See you in the next topic. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and goodbye.
Terima kasih sudah menyaksikan video pembelajaran ini. Jangan lupa like, komen dan subscribe, serta nyalakan tanda loncengnya agar kalian tidak ketinggalan informasi update lainnya.
I hate audio.